Good evening. Nice to see you guys. Sorry, I got stuck in terrible traffic, so my apologies for that. Good to be back in Riyadh. I'm going to try and keep it to about 25 minutes and then maybe a bit of a discussion, which I think is always more fun. You know? So I get a chance to present this really interesting project, but I like to use the project not just to present the project, but to talk about some of the ideas and the principles that were the basis of the project. So I'm going to just take you through it. Because this is an informal setting, you can stop me at any point if you feel I'm going too fast or you want to chat about something. Happy to stop. Yeah. So I live in Dubai. Been there for 28 years, and I've had a chance to work on some really exciting buildings throughout the Middle East. Our group, we are architects and engineers, and what excites us about our work is not just what you can see, but what you can't see. We are very interested in what makes design work versus what design looks like. And my own passion really is that what's visible and what's not visible. And to be honest, most of our efforts in our work actually go into things that people never see. They see just people get to see the outside of the design. They don't really get to see the inside of the design. To make it all worthwhile, you know, the late nights and the long weekends, to make it worthwhile, it's important to have a purpose, to have a reason why we design the way we do. And I've spent my career looking for that intersection between art and science, engineering and architecture, how it comes together. And this project in Dubai is an interesting case study, actually. I think I see it more as a case study of how we can bring some of that thinking of architecture and engineering, how we can bring it together. So the building is almost complete. It's an 82-story hotel tower. It's about 1,000 rooms. So it's a big tower for a hotel. It's in the Dubai Marina part of Dubai, which of course has many high-rise buildings. These are renderings, so these are not photographs. But I'm just going to scroll through it very quickly, and then I'm going to just take you through the project, how we designed it, why did we end up where we are in the design. So I guess as with most things, it usually starts with a telephone call, which was the case here. A call from one of our clients. We've done lots of work for this group. I think I'm going to try and focus probably just on a few chapters. This presentation might be longer than you guys would want it to be. So I might focus just on a few aspects of it, and then maybe we open it up for discussion, which is more fun. You know? So I want to talk about the idea of first principles. How do we design something, and how do we approach the design? And the case that we make in all of our work is that design is a team sport. It's not an individual sport. It requires a huge amount of collaboration between not just the architects and engineers, but also all the other people that come together. And we are huge believers in bringing a lot of smart people together, men and women, into the same room. We also believe in just how messy and unpredictable great design should be. Because if you don't have the courage to try things that may seem improbable, then there's a good chance you actually won't push the boundaries. And of course, technology. And we're all talking about what the role of technology in our near future. When I get a chance to present CL, I often like to show you not just what the building looks like, but the effort that went into the design. And in this case, it's interesting that when we look at the hours of design effort that went into this project, only 40% is architecture and about 45% is engineering, which is structural and mechanical, electrical, and we do all of that in-house. So I like to remind people that the design process, if you're part of a design firm or if you're a developer working with a design firm, the design process over time looks something like that, with the peaks and troughs as we move through design. And the design is multidisciplinary. It has architects and engineers. The reason I show this chart is really to admit that we actually make most of our design decisions very early. We usually make, I would say 98% of all our design decisions are made when we've only spent 2% of our total hours. And so the challenge becomes, how do we make sure that the early decisions that we make in our designs are actually the right decisions? Because it's too early to know how it's going to turn out. And so I'll come back to the process. The process really is one where we have to bring all the players together really early. So our studio in Dubai is set up that way. It's almost like a campus, a university campus setting, where a lot of people work together. So our leaders, we have a group of 120 people. Our group of 10 has about 250 years of experience, but 150 is with Noor. So that continuity that we get is really important. So 6 years ago, I was sitting at my desk and I get a call, and it's a client that we've done work for. We've designed a few towers for them. And they said that they've just bought a property in the Dubai Marina, and would we be interested to look at it? And of course I said yes. And as we looked at the property, we realized that it's actually quite an interesting location. It's in the part of Dubai that has no FAR or height restriction. So really, it comes down to your ability to maximize what you can do on a property. What we found also is that what's really exciting about this plot of land is the views it has, not just to the ocean, but also views back to the marina, and then views back to the city of Dubai. So very early on, we told the owner that we think there's a tremendous opportunity to do something here, but there's also a bit of a regret, because I'm an admirer of the Infinity Tower, which you see, and unfortunately, we're going to be building right in front of it. So my first impulse was, what can we do, one, to not have as much impact on that tower, but also if we're going to replace the skyline, we should do something special. So we convinced our client that the building should not be a wall-like building, but it should be basically a cylindrical building in shape to maximize the views. And then it would be a super tall, meaning it's 370 meters, which makes it a super tall tower. Now, I would say that I've been working for 38 years now, 28 in Dubai and about 10 years in the US. This is probably the hardest project I've worked on. The property is really challenging. You can see that it's not a regular rectangular property. And to make things even more difficult, when we were asked to look at the property, there was a design for a building, and the piles were already built. So if you went to the land and you dug a bit, you would find concrete piles in the ground, because another design consultant, before the Wall Street crash, before all the chaos of the subprime crisis, 2008, there was a design for a residential tower to be built on this property. And the question was what to do. Should they go ahead and build the design that was already partially built? It was partially built already. Should they go ahead and build it, convert that design to a hotel, which was the mandate? And so they asked us to look at it, and they also worked with the other design firm. The firm that had done the original design was also involved. They took the approach that they would take the design they already had and they would retrofit it. They would retrofit it to become a hotel. We took a different approach. Our approach was based on our first principle thinking. We asked ourselves, what are the possibilities? How can we approach this property and perhaps come up with a different design? And this process, it was pretty fast-paced. I would say 6 weeks. We tried many schemes. Some of them worked and some didn't work. So the challenge was, how do we look at a property which already has some construction in it, and it's a really difficult property, but how do we look at solutions that might be challenging, but they would actually give the developer a higher efficiency, more hotel keys than they would have got if they stayed with the original design. And then, of course, we felt that there was an opportunity not just to design a tower, but to design something which had gardens embedded within it, a garden tower. So I'm happy to say we were selected for the project, and then we started working in earnest. And when we started our design effort, the building was going to be about 300 meters in height. And so this is a lineup of the tallest hotels in the world. These are not the tallest towers in the world. These are the tallest buildings that are only hotel-only towers. And what we said to our client is that there's an opportunity to introduce these atrium gardens in the tower. And by doing that, we would be excavating some of the areas on the floor plates. We would introduce gardens, and then we would use that excavated mass and we'd put it on the top of the tower. So the tower would get roughly 10% taller, but it would have gardens. And then the conversation was, well, what if the top of the tower became a public event? So we would introduce a observation deck. They can ticket it. They can earn revenue from the observation deck, like the Burj Khalifa, for instance. And so there was an opportunity also at the very top of the tower to create an aspect that was not private, but was it was a public amenity. And by the time we did all that, the tower shifted to become the tallest hotel tower in the world. I have to admit that was not a stated objective. It was just the byproduct of the design process. So today, I just want to touch on how we got there. And for me, what's exciting for me in my own life and my work is the chance to imagine, is to sketch and imagine things, and then to find ways of expressing those ideas. So while we use all the high-tech digital stuff that's in the market, we use everything, but we also believe in a lot of hand sketching and notebooks and sketching on walls. In our studio, you can draw on the walls and then just rub it off. So these are the earliest sketches for the tower, where I was exploring transformative geometries. Perhaps the tower would evolve from a process where Platonic geometries would be transformative in the height of the tower. And then as we studied it further and looked at wind, because wind is a primary driver in the design of super tall buildings. It's not gravity and it's not seismic, it's wind. So very quickly, we were also studying early computational models for the wind. And then this notion of introducing landscape and shared public space through the height of the tower became actually quite a driver. And what was really exciting about all of this was that our client, we show them all our sketches, everything's open book. And so a lot of the meetings are all about the sketches. It's not about the rendering. It's not about trying to be too clever. It's really about sharing the thought process. And so for me personally, I use sketching as a design tool. I use it as a tool to explore ideas, even if we don't do it. Like you might, if you were writing a book, you might scribble what you're writing and then you might cut it out and do it again. So for me personally, sketching is a really therapeutic way of exploring ideas. And very early we felt that the sense of arrival, when you arrive at the hotel, what would it feel like to arrive here? And of course, as I said, the property is a really challenging property. There isn't enough property there to really have the grandeur of arrival. So what we decided was that we would take the parking structure and lift it up. We just lifted the parking structure up on Piloti and created an urban drop-off under the parking. So we had been working for almost a year. And I was in Manila, actually Manila Airport. And we were in detailed design. We had probably produced over, I'd say we'd produced over 5,000 drawings at this point. We had a team of about 30 people working for about a year. And we thought the project's going really well. We were almost getting ready to produce tender documents. It's going to go into construction. So I'm sitting in Manila Airport and I get a call, and it's our client, and he says that, Yaya, we've changed our mind. We want this tower. It was designed as a 2/3 hotel and 1/3 apartments. And Amir Bawab called and he said, our board has met and we've changed our mind. We want the entire tower to be hotel, we'd like to remove the apartments and replace it with hotel rooms. So I said, fine, as I always do. And the question was, what do we do? So, I picked up the phone, called Robert. Robert was in Dubai. He's my director of architecture. I said, Robert, we've got a situation. How do we approach this? Can we just retrofit our design and we don't have to change too much? And so we got into this debate, and even just sitting at the airport, I was sketching, and I thought, no, I think we're going to have to redesign the tower. We're going to completely redesign the core. We're going to bring all the elevators to the front of the tower. And remember, we already had 5,000 drawings done at this point. And the thinking was that we redesign the core and the structure. We bring all the elevators to the front, because it's a single-use tower, so that everyone can enjoy the view. And so this is where we ended up. The floor plate, there are 17 elevators overall. And of course, we have what's called the low-rise and high-rise part of the tower. So some of the elevators drop out, but everyone gets to land at the same lobby and get the view to the horizon. Now, the reason I show this is that I'm a huge believer that, I guess, what's the analogy? The analogy is that if you're walking in a forest and you're walking on a path, and often, as what happens when you go hiking, you notice that the path breaks into two paths. One goes off to the left and one to the right. And then you have to make a decision. Which way should I go? Should I take the one on the left or the right? And what I usually ask is, which is the more difficult path? And if the difficult path is turning right, I'll probably take it. Because what I found is that when I make decisions that are the more difficult decisions, often I get a chance to open up and find solutions that I would not have found had I taken the easier way. And that was definitely the case with this project. We made lots of really difficult decisions to get to where we are. So our studio in Dubai is architects and engineers. We're about 120 people. We have a 3D lab where we build probably, my guess is we build about 200 models, physical models every year, 200. And most of them we build for ourselves. We don't build them for our clients. These are study models. So for CL, we probably built about 100 models for CL, physical models, as we are testing the design. So we are sketching, we are making digital models, and we are making physical models. And that interface between the hand sketch and the models, these are study models. And some of them are really big. Some of them are huge. And because I'm very suspicious about digital modeling. I find that if you're clever, you can make anything look good. So we test our digital models by building physical models to really see, is it really going to be what we want it to be when it's built? So it's quite a daunting task. It's quite laborious. So this is the concept of the tower. You arrive in this drop-off area. Let me see. And then you enter the tower, and you discover a secret garden. So the lobby of the tower is a series of secret gardens that then cascade. There's 12 of them, 12 gardens that go from ground level to level 82. I don't think there's any tower in the world that has as many gardens as this one does. And these are all, the trees have arrived. They're in a nursery in Dubai right now. So we are getting ready for the trees to be planted in the tower. it's a high-tech building with nature embedded in it, where we could embed it. So one of the huge challenges in my life is, how do I take complex problems and try and find simple solutions for them? And I call it complex to simple. How do you get there? How do you get from complexity to simplicity? And of course, I think there are limitations. You can only, a very complex issue is complex. That's what it is. So what we try and do, like in this project, what happened was that very early we discovered that there were concrete piles. So our solution was to embed more piles, put a raft slab. The tower then sits on the raft. The parking structure, as I mentioned, is elevated. So there's a double helix ramp that takes you up into the parking. And then we created a drop-off area with the secret garden. So everything that you see here is actually very embedded and actually extremely complex. But when you go to hopefully you'll visit the project next year when it opens, you won't feel it. You won't see the complexity. The complexity is hidden, and hopefully it's solved. And I find that really exciting. And I started the talk with this idea of the visible and the invisible, what you can see and what you can't see. So my own career and my own life is actually committed to the invisible, what you can't see. How do we find solutions for complex problems? But then the user doesn't need to know it, unless they end up at a conference, and then I can tell you about it. So if it's too boring, I can stop and we can have a conversation, or I can keep going, whichever way you guys want to do it. Should I keep going? I'm going to talk about the unique challenges when you design a super tall building. So I've had a chance to design all kinds of buildings in my career, from one-story buildings to 120-story buildings, and they're not the same. When you design super tall buildings, your whole thinking has to change. You can't use the same thinking that you would with a smaller building. So in super tall buildings, the confluence of forces and form, there's a very strong symbiotic relationship between how you shape the architecture and the natural forces that are on the building. And there are basically three main forces, which is a gravitational force, which is the weight of the building. So gravity is pulling it down. There's a seismic, which is preparing for earthquakes. How will the building react in an earthquake? And then there's wind. What is the effect of wind on a tower? And what we see, and what scientists and engineers have done lots of research on this, more often than not, gravity and seismic are less important than wind. Wind becomes the primary force that you need to deal with. Or it becomes an aspect of design that's probably the most challenging. And not just static, but we look at wind dynamically. How does the building oscillate in the wind? So when we won the project, and as I said, it was designed, there was a design for a rectangular building, and we wanted a circular flow plate building. So we introduced additional piles. And one of the things I'd like to emphasize is that within about 3 weeks, from the day I got the telephone call, within 3 weeks, I had to know, can I completely redesign it, yes or no? I needed to know that. So our engineers were involved in the design from day zero. I don't wait for the engineers to get involved. It's automatic, and it's wind analysis. We then had another unique challenge, which was how do we put glass on the tower? Because the tower does not have any typical floors. Every floor in the building is different. So there are 82 floors, and all 82 are unique. And of course, we use 3D modeling to generate the design. But the challenge was not just the floors. The challenge was how do we put glass on it? And we had very strict budget issues on this project. You may not believe it, but we had very tight control on construction budget. So very early on, I realized that the only way we can do that is through a pretty rigorous computational strategy, where we worked with glass manufacturers, and we discovered that even though the building is a three-dimensional surface, we will produce glass that's flat glass panels, because that's cheap and it can be done. And when the panels come to the site, we're going to cold bend them. So we're going to bend the panel to fit the shape of the building. And that's a process that's called cold bending. You can do that. But as you might imagine, you can only bend glass so much, especially because these are insulated glass units. These are two sheets of glass with an inert gas between them. So it's not easy to bend glass without shattering it. So what we do is that because we are we use a lot of math in our designs. Very early in the facade design, we categorized how much we can bend. So the green is safe, the yellow is marginal, and the red is you're approaching the danger zone. And what we found in our early designs, that about a third of the panels were red, which was obviously a huge challenge. So we went through a process of playing with the shape of the tower ever so slightly, and playing with the resolution of the panel sizes. And it's all done in Grasshopper and Dynamo. But the goal is to move the center of gravity towards the green zone, so that I still get a really exciting building, and I still get a building that is very efficient with wind because it's tapered, but also I need to solve it for the actual panelization and design of the glass. Now again, I'm really using this tower not so much about the tower, but more about the process. How I like in our studio, how we create problems and then we solve them. And sometimes people ask me, like, why do we need to create the problem and then solve it? Why can't we do designs that are perhaps less ambitious? And my mantra is always the same. It's the two paths through the forest. I think if we are willing to test our own boundaries, see how far we can push ourselves and our own systems, it's interesting. You can discover some really amazing things about yourself and also your people who are working with you. I'll keep it a bit short and then maybe we can chat. But when I look around and I look at people who inspire me, most of them are not architects. I mean, the people who inspire me are people like Nelson Mandela or Gandhi, Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, Mother Teresa. There are people in the world who we've had a chance to be inspired by. And what I feel is that if you really look at those people and you ask yourself, what is it about them? What is it about them that's so inspiring? I would say Nelson Mandela has a very interesting statement. He once said, "It always looks impossible until it's done." And I often tell my daughters, I have 2 daughters, I often tell them to read some of Nelson Mandela's writings. It always looks impossible until it's done. And that's true. But it takes a lot of hard work to get there. And what Steve Jobs said, what he said makes Apple special, or it did make Apple special, certainly when he was alive, it wasn't just what it looked like, it was how it worked. How do great technology come together to give users an amazing user experience? So a tower has to work. A tower is actually a machine that really needs to function and work, and it has to perform. So I personally spend a huge amount of my time working with elevator specialists and fire life safety engineers. I love technology. I love people who are very embedded in their discipline. And then we run hundreds of models. We run. This is. I love this chart. I know it looks really boring. I admit it. But this is a chart that shows you how the hotel is serviced. How the room service brings dinner up to your room, and when you're done, how do they take the dirty dishes back into the kitchen? How do they bring linen up to your room? So we get very involved, not just in the design of our buildings, but in how they actually work, the flow diagram of all the functionality and the service elevators and the waiting time. The waiting time when you press the button on the service elevator, how long does it take before the door opens? And I like to say that there is nothing called impossible. Perhaps I am possible is a better version of it. But I have to admit that there were moments when we were designing this tower where I thought we're not going to make it. We had created so much complexity that we had to solve. But we did solve it. And so I won't bore you too much. So this project, it looks very abstract and simple on the outside, but when you get into the guts of it, it's extremely complex. I can show you other stuff on performance, but I think I won't bore you. So what's my passion? I guess I have 2 passions. One is towers and the other is trees. And I've spent my life trying to see how I can bring them together. Can I bring the design of towers and my love for landscape? Can I bring it together in my work? And CL is an example of that effort. It's one of many where we've embraced verticality and density, but we've also found ways where we can embed nature into these towers. So this tower has 12 gardens, which are one for each month of the year, 12 months of the year. And these gardens are 6 to 8 stories high. And very early in the design, I felt that I wanted these gardens to be naturally ventilated. I didn't want them to be air-conditioned. We would bring in the sea breeze, and the gardens would work through convection. So we have computer-controlled glass louvers because it's a very high-tech building, and we bring fresh air into the gardens, and then we work with really smart people who tell us how the air will circulate. And we only cool the part of the garden where people are sitting, which is the very lowest 2 meters in the entire space. And you can see that by not air conditioning the entire building, by allowing the building to vent naturally, we were able to reduce the cooling load, the air conditioning energy load of the building is tremendously reduced because we allowed natural air and natural convection into the gardens. So that's what the floor plate looks like. And of course it changes as the tower, you can see the shape of the tower changes as it goes up. It oscillates and it opens up. And then these gardens which are almost ready now. As I said, the trees are still in the nursery, but they're going to be coming soon. And then these are going to become these really exciting shared landscape spaces that people can use in the building. So I'm quite excited to see how that comes out. I think I'm almost done, so thank you for your patience. So we are reminded also that our work is for people. We should remember that the buildings we design, no matter how sophisticated they are, how ambitious they are, ultimately our buildings are designed for people to enjoy them and to use them. So when we won the project, we were asked not only to do the architecture and the engineering, we were asked also to do the interior design, which was really exciting. And we had a really talented interior designer. She was working on this project, and she came up with this concept that the interior of the building would have that simplicity, I would say a modest simplicity, without being ostentatious. So that when you're in the lobby, you can touch and feel the concrete. The core of the building is concrete. We want you to be able to touch it and to understand how the building is built. The rooms have turned out pretty elegant. They're pretty clean, straightforward design. The bathrooms are in glass. So we worked very hard that the interior design of the tower is not over-the-top ostentatious. It should be somewhat modest and elegant. Because in a way, I want the building to be understated and dramatic at the same time. So can it be dramatic and really exciting as a building, and can it not overdo it? Can it hold back a bit? And so really that's been our mantra. And these are some construction shots which I'll show you. Watching the tower go up has been really exciting. And of course, today it's almost ready, as I said, 370 meters. You can see the glass going up, the atria. The top of the tower is steel. So it's all steel structure at the top. There are 4 swimming pools. So for me personally, it's been a phenomenal project. It's been a phenomenal project to work on. It's been just over 6 years now. And we do the construction supervision. We are involved in the project. We don't just design and walk away. I've got a team of 20 people on the construction site. I'm at the construction site. Every other week, I'm there to look at something. Thank you very much. And happy to take some Q&A if you guys are interested, or even just a cup of coffee, whatever works. Yeah. Thank you. All good? Question. Good.
Hi there. Thank you very much. That was illuminating. I wonder 2 things. First of all, a very technical question for you. Given that the glass is already stressed in your bending each pane of glass, how much leeway have you got in terms of sway due to wind? I mean, just what do you have to play with there? Number 1. Number 2, just a general, almost you could even say philosophical question. You speak as if you had autonomy to design this and to bring it to final form in your own vision. But I wonder how involved was the actual client, the owner of the building? Were they breathing down your neck at every point in the process, or did they give you great amounts of autonomy? Because surely they were very keen to have things go their way. So you had the salesmanship aspect of your design initially, but as you went along, surely they were a big factor. And I wonder, how do you balance your desire with the commercial need of the client?
Look, these are great questions. I'm going to repeat the question because sometimes when you're holding the mic, people can't hear you. So I'm going to do it in reverse. There were two questions. The second one is like a really amazing question. The second question was, how does it really work, the design process? Is it really an architect just coming up with a vision, or what is the involvement of the client? Surely there's a process there. And how did that pan out? Yeah, and the second question was more technical. It was about the inflection of the glass and how does that relate to the structural movement of the tower? Because as we know, all buildings move. So a tower has to move with the wind. So how did we design for movement in the tower? But I'll look at the question related to the design process and collaboration is like a really amazing question, in my opinion. And I was reading an autobiography of Louis Kahn, the famous architect, American architect, mid 20th century. And Louis Kahn said that his best work, which is the Roby House and the Salk Institute, right? So the Roby House was designed for Mr. Roby, and the Salk Institute was designed for Jonas Salk, who invented penicillin. He was the famous inventor of penicillin. And Louis Kahn said that his best work has been when the collaboration between the designer and the owner has been really amazing. And the owner is also coming up with ideas. And so in my own work, I work very closely with owners. We have weekly workshops. Generally, I present sketches. The way I work is I will go away for a week and generate ideas and sketches, and then we will build models, and we will have, we do whatever it takes, and then we have a workshop, and then there's a lot of debate. I don't get everything I want, for sure, but I love it. I mean, I love that process of design. Where hopefully the owner is someone who you really respect and they respect you, and you're trying to look for solutions together. So most of the time it's an amazing process. And I just want to say one more thing. I think it's really dangerous to design alone, because you don't want to live a lonely life where you feel that you're an artist and you're in your own studio and you're cut off from the world. I don't think that's a great way, at least for me. It's not a great way for me to live my life. I'd rather live my life engaging with people. Sometimes we are sketching in the workshop. We'll be sketching during the workshop with the owner. And I find it very exciting, really. So that is what happened. But I will say that the owner of CL, they gave me a huge amount of breathing space. There was very little that they didn't allow me to do. Very little. I got almost everything I wanted, which is amazing. But it's my fourth tower. This is not my first tower for these guys. I've designed 3 other towers for them. So I've known them for 10 years, and there's a huge amount of mutual respect there. Does that answer your question? So the other question had to do with movement. I have to go. I think movement means I need to move. Yeah? But buildings do move, and we calculate for it, and everything has to move with it, including the glass. That's the short answer, obviously. Yeah? Thank you so much. Thank you very much.